What is up, ladies and gentlethems? We got some shit for you.
Yes, we do. So, today I'm going to prove that Asmon is wrong.
Okay.
And that Asmon is actually a moral person.
Degenerate, but moral.
Oh,
yes.
Absolute degenerate. God, we love him for his degeneracy, but moral.
He's
actually moral. He's actually moral. And not only is he moral, just to kind of like, ooh, let's see how the end of the video works out. I actually think I can prove that he's more of a moral person than the average person.
Yes, he's more moral.
Even though he says
than
certain
us.
things.
I know us is like a collective.
Oh,
like
us is a collective. Yeah.
It's like when they say mankind and everybody gets fucking offended for some reason. Fuck you, fight me.
Okay, yeah, there we go. Keep that energy. We're going to go with it. So, Asmon in the video, let's see, I got it over here. The rise of garbage house influencers. So he was reacting to people over in Japan trying to be like him. No one can ever be like the Roach King himself. God bless the one true king. Anyways, so Asmon gets on there and he goes, I don't think that I'm a moral person. He talks about how when he was younger, he used to have his mom read the Bible stories to him to figure out why people didn't like to do things.
Oh, yes, the pinnacle of morality.
Yeah.
And nothing else, apparently.
Which can be kind of weird, right? People are like, oh, he's showing off his power level, and he even mentioned that maybe he's showing off too much of his power level. But
okay.
I think that's more complicated because it's like, well, was it the Ten Commandments? I don't think it was the Ten Commandments based on, all the things I've watched from him and my educated guess out of the experience of watching those videos, not being parasocial. Maybe a little bit parasocial.
Parasocial relationships are showing.
Yeah. I have not gotten the body pillow of Asmon yet.
That's a damn shame.
I know, it is. We could both sleep with it. Anyways.
I will not be a part of that threesome. I am fucking done.
So, Asmon, if you're out there and you actually happen to watch this, I think that there's a little confusion here. And maybe it was a bit you were playing up, but for real, like I think I'm going to prove by the end of this that he's more moral than the average person. So anyways, okay, so here we go.
More moral than the average bear.
Yeah,
which is why he's safer than the bear, by the way, ladies.
No.
Certain dudes are.
Okay.
Certain dudes are not.
So, all right. That's a video we ought to do, by the way. Even though the trend is past, we should do that video.
Who gives a shit?
How most people are moral. So, morality starts for most people as an enculturation. Mm-hmm. That they get handed down their beliefs, right? There's no thinking about it. It's just, hey, we don't do this thing because we as a culture don't want to have this happen, right?
Right.
It's whatever. Now, a secondary, and we'll go to this here in a minute, but a secondary place that they get their morality from is usually some other external source. That is to say, like, religion was, like, the main one for most of American history, right?
Right.
Hi, Aiden.
Hi, hon.
So, but nowadays, most external sources of ideology is, like, politics, economics, or social justice, right?
Yes.
Like, these become the thing that people derive their morality from. But anyways, we'll go back to enculturation. So there's something kind of important that happens with the enculturation. People do, insofar as I can see, one of three things. They just keep it. They keep the brainwashing. Mm-hmm. Because, in a sense, it's brainwashing, but I don't think it's necessarily negative. Right. Even though it has negative aspects to it where you say, oh, well, we've done things this way and therefore we should just honor this bullshit. And it's like...
So tradition for the sake of itself.
Yeah, it's tradition to masturbate your ancestors.
Peer pressure from dead people.
So...
Great.
These people are not emotionally intelligent when they just keep it. This is not an intellectual attachment. This is an emotional attachment. This is USA! USA! And so it's not thought through. So they either keep it. Now I'm going to go to the other extreme before we get to the one that I think becomes the more problematic, right? Because it's easy just to go, they kept it. they stay an extremist in,
Right.
in
Well,
their
we're
ideologies.
talking about the blind keeping it, right? Like
Yeah.
the not thinking it through and just doing it because this is what's done.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the other side of it is then it's based on evidence.
Right.
These are people who use their intellect to go, I used to value not giving particular groups of people freedom, but now that I recognize I value freedom for all of humans. Maybe not monkeys, but all of humans. Right? So
Harambe deserved better. There. We'll bring that back. Why not? Why not? It's a party.
Why is it when I bring up dead memes, you shun me?
Because I'm funny.
And I'm funny looking.
No, you're not.
So
Don't insult my husband. I will fight you.
naked.
No.
I love the fact that we're keeping this in. I get so tickled by that.
This is our actual marriage, by the way, that it doesn't change once the camera's off.
So they change based on evidence, but it's intellectual, right? They look for evidence and they go, I want to hold this thing valuable, so maybe the culture holds other than freedom, right? Although that's a really easy one, right? That's a low-picking fruit. It's like, in America we value freedom only for a few group of people. And it's like really stupid. Now, the third group, which is really kind of sits in the middle, at least in the way I built my notes out, was that these are people who reject. Now, people can reject something. So like you get the kind of stereotype of, I was the small, simple town Christian kid. And by the way, before y'all get pissed off, I'm a Christian. Just chill out. But I'm trying to be more of an intellectual Christian. So I'm not here dogging Christianity, but come on, guys. We have some things that are really stupid that we're doing as a whole. So you get Christians that go to college, right? And their eyes kind of get open to the little bit more of the nuance that the world works. And they're like, oh my God, my Christianity. And so they're like, okay, what's the logical thing to do here? Not to slowly, bit by bit, work through the things that I believe and to go, okay, this is problematic. We should probably get rid of this. There's a better idea over here. It's like, no, I've now become a level 69 Reddit mod atheist.
Nice.
And then you got your fedora from Wish, not Amazon, but from Wish. I've got to get a fedora. God,
not from Wish, you're not?
Oh, not from Wish. I look great in fedoras.
Good for you.
And every time I will
happy.
milady you.
You will do it once.
Once is satisfactory. So
not to me, it isn't.
Anyways.
Oh wait, you're a white dude. It doesn't matter if I'm satisfied. That's right. Freedom for certain groups, guys. You heard it here.
So hi Freya,
our dog.
So when people reject, so they can go the intellectual route, or they just go the emotional route, which is basically the same as the people who just keep their enculturation.
It's funny how the outright keeping and the outright rejection are both the overly emotional, blind refusal to actually put in the work and think through.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether you keep with the enculturation or you reject it. You either grasp that Bible, for example, like you're going to die if they take it from you. You're not, pinky swear. Or you chuck it out the window, which is also like really not cool either, because I don't do that to any holy book, please. That's mean. But it seems like there is no thought, like any actual thought. It's more of an emotional reaction to, I have to keep this because I have to, or I have to reject this because I saw like these things that did not mesh.
Yeah.
And so there's no time taken to think it through and pick up and put down opinions in the presence of new evidence like a fucking adult.
Well, he actually makes reference to that he says people won't do that because they have to admit that they're wrong. And I think he's right.
Yeah,
I think that's a really good point.
True.
And so either people don't want to admit they're wrong, or people just get freaking angry and they become hateful. Right. And it's like, just because you're against the original idea, and you're contrasting off of it, it still means that you're a slave to that idea, because then your identity becomes opposing that. And so it
either controls you if you keep it, or it controls you if you reject it.
Yeah, so the people who keep it and the people who reject it are slaves to it. to the enculturation versus the people who become intellectuals become the master of their own morality.
Right.
So, external sources. Let me bring my notes down. Okay, so I've got external sources. Again, this is religion, was religion for a very long time, but it can still be religion. I think it's actually more economics. I think economics is the god of our day. In my opinion, there's a great article called "The Market is God." It's very weird how people worship the economy and make sacrifices, really even human sacrifices, and not the QAnon sense, right? Like, but in the kind of like QAnon, they would say literal human sacrifices on a dais and stab them and babies and shit. But the but in the sense of like they're gonna go, oh yeah, we'll screw over this group of poor people and yeah, just screw them and they'll have a terrible life. So we're gonna sacrifice their life to.
Did you mean all of the political elite?
Yeah, something like that. So when it's an external source, there's like this problem of faith versus dogma, right? So how I believe that Christianity should be is that you have faith in God.
Yes.
And I would say 99.9% of all Christians don't have faith in God. They have a dogma of God. They have a concept of him that's built. So you know how God is in the Bible is supposed to have made man in his image?
Yes.
Well, these people went, that's a cute idea. We're going to make God in our image. And that becomes their dogma, right? It's like, it's to reflect me, not what should be a supreme good that stands above all the other things, right?
And this is why they cherry pick, because there would be things in the Bible that would, wow, all right, dog. She's mad. We quit petting her, and apparently we're terrible dog owners.
Jesus,
because we quit petting her.
So dogma, yeah. So dogma then is just they're going to eat the slop of any person that they believe in.
Right.
Now faith,
of what it is.
And it's hard, right? Because dogma gives you certainty, and then you want to sit with that. You don't want to have to deal with ambiguity.
Right.
This is not something people or humans in general like to do. But faith instead is uncertainty, right? It deals primarily with uncertainty.
Right. That's why you have to believe, because you don't know.
You don't know.
If you knew, it would just be a fact.
There's nothing that you can do to prove or disprove God.
Right.
Like, it's just, it doesn't work either way. And so it's like you have to have faith. And by the way, if you think that you're an atheist and you don't have a religion and science isn't your religion, that's cute. Humans are weirdly just built to have religious ideals. And they often do it as a dogma instead of faith. Because faith has to deal with uncertainty. It has to deal with not knowing.
Right.
Which therefore leads to questioning. And really faith at the end of the day with anything it's a personal exploration of figuring out what it means, why it matters, what's the purpose, all that. So
true faith forces questioning.
Yeah, true. Exactly.
And that's okay. It's not bad to sit there, and we'll do the hard one. As a Christian, it is not a crime to sit there and go, why cancer? Why is that a thing? Why do babies die? That's not a bad question to be asking. You're supposed to question your faith. I cannot imagine a creator, like a loving God, that would make humanity so curious and so intent on learning the world around us and then get mad at us for doing it. My God, we're doing the thing that you made us with. Questioning is not a crime, and disrespect is not blasphemy. And by the way, disrespecting a person is not blasphemous either. It's just being a dick. Don't be a dick until it's time.
Don't be that guy.
Yeah, don't be that guy.
Jesus is going to have to ask you to get off his lawn.
Unless it's time to be that guy. In which case, be that guy. Absolutely.
So.
But question, for the love of God, ask.
Good.
That's the entire point.
That's good. I'm sorry, because I had to walk away to shut the door so Freya would stop barking at the wall.
Time right over.
No. Not like, okay, good. That is through your part?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, cool. Okay, so here's the problem. Here's the problem with people. Because Asmon had made...
Besides everything.
So here's the thing that I'm like clapping back against. That he said. He goes, I don't have a moral compass. Or I'm sorry, he says he has a moral compass, but it doesn't point north.
Okay.
As though everyone else's points north. I don't think they point north. I think they point to themselves because
Right.
everyone's it's self-referential. Everyone's morality is self-referential. Not everyone. There are moral people, but most average
Well,
people.
yeah.
It's self-referential. It's how do I feel about the situation? I'm the self-righteous judge. I get to choose how things should work, right?
Right.
So my kind of point, this might piss some people off, but listen, if you can't be nuanced, you're doing yourself a disservice. Bill Cosby. I know. First off, let's say this. Fuck Bill Cosby. Not literally.
Don't fuck Bill Cosby. And if you get really tired around Bill Cosby,
yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
so
fuck
sorry.
him.
I'm so sorry.
He's a piece of shit. So, Bill Cosby. But here's the thing. I have kind of a moral argument that everyone is like, oh, he shouldn't have been let out of jail, right? And I'm like, no. Based on the way that our justice system works, he was given a deal by a previous district attorney who was going to prosecute him, but for whatever reason, they felt like they couldn't prosecute him. And so they gave him a deal, and they said, hey, if you plead guilty in this civil, but not guilty, but it confess in this civil case against him, basically to get them more money, then they're like, we will drop the charges, right? We won't prosecute you. So then years go by, and this new district attorney comes in, and he runs on this platform of, oh, we're going to get him thrown in jail. And then they did, and they threw him in jail. There is a kind of system at play here that we go, is this really the way that we want to be? As a society where the government officials can come in and go, oh, let's give you a deal, let's make this happen, and then the next official comes in and goes, bitch, you didn't make that deal with me. I'm taking that back. Your ass is going to jail. Because we have you now on testimony saying you're guilty. You confess to it. You're out. Right? Everyone just goes, oh, what do I feel? What do I think about it? And I'm like, no. What does the system say? Because the system's actually predicated, not that it does this, but it's predicated on the idea that justice should be equal. And that the way you treat one person is the way you treat everyone.
Right.
And it has to be like that for it to work.
Right.
Even though, fuck Bill Cosby, we could have a whole other conversation about how the dude should have maybe been thrown in jail. I don't know what was going on. I'm not a district attorney. I don't know that shit. That's not my wheelhouse. I just have to trust that he wasn't doing something shady and he was actually trying to help the victims. Right? Like, I don't know. But my point is, everyone looks at a situation, they have no expertise in it, and they just go, how would I feel? I'm like, bitch, who cares what you feel? You weren't on the jury. Right. You don't understand how the system works. And so, next step for that, right, why Asmon may not understand this, that I think is actually pointing north. Not that there's a universal moral truth or anything like that. But anyways, the analogy stands. Is that their morality is simplistic.
Yeah.
They have the nuance of SpaghettiOs. I don't know if that's going to
Don't hate on SpaghettiOs.
I don't, yeah. Anyway, okay, so here's my actual analogy. Is that moral people, when you see people who are actually moral, actually stand up for their values, are just virtuous. They're excellent at being good. These people are like the Sistine Chapel. They're beautiful in what they do versus all these other average people who claim to be moral. They have the beauty of a finger painting by a brain damaged toddler. That may be a little too far, but I'm just
fuck it, we're there.
Yeah, it happened. Not that toddler's heart isn't beautiful for the sake that it's beautiful, but if we were comparing things.
So it seems like it's more that the average quote unquote moral person, it's not necessarily that they are that finger painting. It's more of they made that finger painting and now are mad that they're not being treated like they painted the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah, there you go. I think that works.
Like, of course you didn't. You had 4 crayons and 5 minutes to burn.
Right.
What? No, that's all the effort that you put into it. You're going to be treated like that's all the effort that you put into it.
Yeah. And so these people are unrealistic in their expectations. They take reality and they contextualize it within their morality because it's all ego pleasure. And instead of taking morality and matching it up to reality, which is something, and I'll talk about it later, but I think Asmon does that to a great extent. And whether you agree with some of the things or not, that to me is a form of morality.
Well, now, so you can disagree with him all you want. That's neither here nor there. My thing about him that I really enjoy is that whether I agree with what he's saying or I disagree, he will provide reasoning. Like if you come at him and you're like, hey, I don't get this, explain it to me, or why do you feel this, or why blah, blah, blah. He will explain it to you, and you don't have to like what he said. He's not saying it because he's like, please love me. I think it's pretty clear that he really is not concerned with that.
He doesn't care.
It's more of he's explaining his thought process, and regardless of whether I agree with you or not, if you're willing to look somebody in the face or at least explain yourself, I can respect that. So agree or disagree, I respect the fact that there's actual work put into him going, this is what I think.
Yeah.
So he's not just like, no, this is wrong or this is right. He's like, no, I think in this situation, this was right because blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It's like shooting somebody. Generally speaking, murder bad.
Yeah.
Don't murder people, kids. If somebody breaks in that door right now, fortunate son will be playing.
As Asmon would say, castle doctrine, stand your ground.
I'm just saying, don't start no shit, won't be no shit. And I look good in orange, so we can do it. I don't care.
So, the final thing that these people do, okay, we can pull this from the cave, the analogy of, or the allegory of the cave, yeah, from Plato, is that people play games. These are cave people games. The people who sit in the cave, if you haven't read it, go read it. What are you doing with your life? Read some philosophy. Anyways, the allegory of the cave, the guys that, they're chained and they're sitting there and they're seeing the shadows on the wall. And the game is to name what the shadows are, right?
Right.
And the whole reason that they play this game is for honor. Once you see this, once you get this, oh my God, the game is over. You see that pretty much everyone is doing this. All these Twitter people, these users who come in and they clip him and they do all this stuff. It's a game for honor. And so what these people do is that these people who play the game, right? They have a constellation of morality instead of a cluster. So what do I mean by that? So think of a constellation. These are stars that are spread out in the sky, and we just arbitrarily pick them, maybe because of brightness or something, and then we build lines to build out a picture, right? So we take random points of light or random moral ideals, and we say, okay, we're going to put all these together.
Right. Versus
a cluster would be a small group like this that says, hey, these are all chosen because these are morally coherent. They're internally consistent.
Right.
They're logical. But what they do is that then, especially if they see a person who has a cluster of morality, and I think Asmon has a cluster of morality, what they do is they pick a piece out and they throw it out there and they say, no, it's actually a constellation. And then they take all this baggage and add to it. And you see this shit all the time.
Yeah.
So I'll wrap up this in saying that people, the average person, when it comes to them being moral, their morality is equivalent to a monkey pleasuring themselves. This is all that it is to it.
Yuck.
It's not intelligent. It's based on feeling, and it's all for their own satisfaction.
Right.
Okay. So, how should what is morality supposed to be? So, first and foremost, morality is supposed to be responsible.
Yes.
You are choosing to take your own actions, your own ideals, your own thoughts, and say, I'm going to live according to this idea.
Right.
Or ideal, whatever.
To be a moral person, you are responsible for yourself. You absolutely are. And in that, there is a responsibility to, I would say, your community at large. Because you've taken that responsibility. You have taken it away from the enculturation or away from whatever external force. You've taken that responsibility away from them and said, no, this is mine. I am responsible for this. Well, great. But your enculturation was responsible for every other motherfucker. And now you have a responsibility to them. You have to act. You have to act in a way that is responsible, because you don't get to blame it on your culture anymore. You don't get to say, oh, well, but where I come from, everybody blah, blah, blah. No, you took that away from your culture. That's on you now, baby.
Yeah.
You chose, because you're moral, right? So be moral. The most immoral fucking thing that you could do is sit there and go, no, this responsibility is mine. I got it. I'm grown. I'll do it. And then you do the thing, and it happens to be like super shitty. And then the community's like, hey, yo, what the fuck? And you're like, but my upbringing. If I can teach a dog to leave a steak alone, you can teach yourself not to be an asshole. I'm just saying, it's not that hard. And if it is that hard, go to therapy.
Get help, bitch.
Get help, motherfucker. Get healthy. You deserve better.
So,
Not that I'm opinionated.
So, ethics is supposed to be a systematic investigation. We're supposed to go from like a core ideal to a refined thought. Mm-hmm. Like we say, hey, the core ideal is freedom of speech. And then we can have a refined thought where we talk about censorship. Right. And this is one of the things that I say, nope, Asmon's moral. Nope, nope, nope. He's moral. Everyone else isn't moral. Yep. Because when we talk about censorship, he has a nuanced position on it that makes sense. He says, no, you should have personal self-censorship. You should be able to censor anything that you don't want to see, but you should not be allowed to go censor what everyone else wants to see.
Right.
Total sense. Makes total sense. It's logically consistent. I think it's great. I was totally against censorship till I heard him say it, and I was like, personal censorship? Why didn't I think of this?
Well,
That's
so even
smart.
Conversations that you and I have had where you were like, yeah, I'm totally against censorship. I'm like, okay, but what? Because the way that you would talk about being against censorship mm-hmm. lends itself to you not actually being fully 1,000,000% fuck that noise. It's more of, no, I should be able to dictate what I see and what I don't. It's not my job to dictate what my next door neighbor sees and what they don't, but I should be able to dictate for myself.
Yeah.
Like that's literally what you have said to me almost verbatim multiple times in those conversations. So I don't think you were ever actually fully against censorship as a whole. I think you just did not have the ability to articulate it in that moment.
Yeah, he articulated the idea.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
He put words to what you already felt.
Right. Okay. So it's getting long, so we're going to start moving. Okay. So ethics should be a reflective investigation of one's values. And your values come from your emotions, right? Your emotions tell you what's valuable. Now, your intellect should be used to evaluate those emotions and to go, oh, I value this. Oh, this is not a good thing. This is not beneficial to myself, so I should value this instead. And you work to change that because there's actually a feeling to ethics. Ethics is not this pure Spock logical bullshit thing, right? Like, there's a feeling to ethics, and it takes time. He's a stereotype.
I know. He was made to be a stereotype.
I know. That's why I don't appreciate him. So, morality is a lifelong process. I love how Confucius put it. Confucius says that as a younger man, he didn't know how to be moral or act moral, and he had no desire to. As he became older, he said, I have this desire to be a moral, good person, but I don't know how to act. And it basically kind of goes on, and he becomes a little more knowledgeable and moral and becoming a little moral until he's like 70, and he's like, I now understand how to be moral and how to not only be moral, but act moral. I am moral now. Meaning it takes a long time, but it actually takes being responsible and acting through it and trying.
Right, it takes trials.
So there's a quick stress test to figure out if someone's trying to be moral. And it's eudaimonia, which in the Greek means the best life or to flourish. And so if someone's living their best life, you can look and go, they're being moral. Right. They're heading the direction now. It's their best life, not your best life. That gets a little tricky. But, if you have mental illnesses in your bio and you have the Pakistani flag and the pride flag sitting next to each other, I don't think you've got eudaimonia, and I don't think that you're very moral. I think you're very unintelligent and emotionally led.
I mean,
I ain't wrong.
You said it a lot nicer than me, but like,
Oh, hey, if you want to pop off.
I really don't.
Okay. So,
No,
okay, let's go on to the last section then.
Let's go.
How Asmon is actually more moral than the average person. And like, this is where we should totally post in like Asmon, but we'll make him gold. Not gold, damn it. Orange. We'll make him orange and be like, I'm moral. I'm so moral.
I have the best
Ask anyone. I have the best morality.
They tested my DNA, and it was the most moral DNA they had ever seen.
Excellent.
They've never seen more moral DNA than me.
Yes. Okay. Why do I think Asmon's moral? So he thinks that he's weird, right? Like that he's different from everyone else. And I think he's right. And I think it's because everyone else is being like a fucking cave person. Like most of chat, you watch chat, they just pop off. Right. They understand none of his nuance, none of the finer points that he's getting. And it's, oh God.
The points aren't difficult to understand.
I know. I don't get it.
It's a product of being stuck in your little fifis. You got your feelings hurt, and now you're mad at the bald guy because he hurt your precious little feelings because you were always mommy's big special boy.
Yeah, well, they can call him bald, and he's like well, I may be bald, but I'm still right.
Well, right. But that's the whole point, is that you get your feelings hurt, and now you're reacting out of a place of emotion and nothing more.
Yeah. So, here's what I think's happened. I think Asmon has always been kind of an intellectual dude from a young age. Yeah. I think this is the case. And so being an intellectual dude, and I'm kind of in that vein, but I'm more emotional than I think I'm way more emotional than he is, right? Yeah. Like I pop off, I'm emotional, and then I can pull it back and then kind of analyze it, right?
Yep.
But I still pop off and I have like an intense emotion.
Right.
Again, and from what I've seen, what he does is that he's very intellectual about it. So he basically does reflective thinking, right? He detaches himself and looks back and goes, what am I really dealing with here?
Right.
Right? And so what I think that translated to as a young kid is that he pierced the cultural veil. He saw through the cultural bullshit, the things that we say that are artificial. Mm-hmm. Or I'm sorry, my favorite definition for culture is like from an anthropologist that says culture is the way in which the artificial feels normal. Nothing that we're doing is natural. It's really all artificially created.
That makes me very happy.
Yeah. And so he pierced the cultural veil and said, I'm not going to take my moral cues from the culture or from religion or any of this other shit. I'm going to take responsibility for it.
Right. So it's like his already intellectual disposition, which, by the way, let's be clear. A ton of people have. And depending upon your upbringing and your culture and blah, 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 a bazillion factors, it can very, very easily be squelched, especially in your childhood. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a family that was very much like, question it all. Everything.
Yeah,
it does not matter if it's, oh, well, but, so-and-so said this and they're so respected. You're allowed to ask why. How else are you supposed to be able to defend the things that you believe if you cannot ask why? And so I think for Asmon, it sounds a lot like his already intellectual disposition was not squelched. Or it was squelched in such a way that it activated his trap card and he went, no, fuck you. Watch me. And I think that bred a person, and he actively chose to become a person who decided to do that thinking. Yeah. And the product of that is what we see now, which is somebody that you can disagree with all you like, but is able to sit back and have a conversation with you and explain himself so clearly.
And not only that, like you touched on something, I think for what happened for him, in the parts where I go, ooh, I don't know if I can sit with that very well, right? Although I still go, he's right? Is that he looks at stuff and goes, all this is arbitrary, right? Because it's just made up by the culture. Some random people decided, and so we just decided to carry that on.
Right.
Because culture isn't necessarily thought through. It's just kind of, it evolves, right? Mm-hmm. And in a sense, some logic gets through the culture, but not all of it. And so what he does is that he sees through that shit, and so he goes, "Look, what does it matter if I steal?" Now he has a good comeback to stealing. Like he's like, "Look, if you're going to steal, just steal. Be proud of it.
Right.
Don't sit here and make a game and morally arbitrate and go, well, I'm stealing from Walmart and they're a crooked company." He's like, "Yeah, but you stole from average people who have their money invested in Walmart, and that's their future retirement. So you're actively stealing from them." Like, even though he's like advocating to just do what you want, do as you will, but don't fucking play games here,
right?
And try to call it something else. And I think that's a sort of morality to it.
Oh, it is, and it's the problem that I see a lot of people in chat have is that it is pure, in that he cannot be bought. You're not gonna buy him off to make him say something else because you pulled on his heartstrings.
Oh, yeah.
Because all he's going to do is say, "Okay, yeah, those situations happen. I don't know about that. I can't speak on that.
Yeah.
I've never been there."
You got to my next point.
Like,
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. He doesn't play the game, right?
Right.
So he takes responsibility for himself, but there's this internet game of, well, if they're your followers and you are responsible for them, he's like, fuck off. Right? He's like, no one, and he always does that for everyone else. He doesn't hold them responsible for what their people do, right? So yeah, he sticks to what he believes is true, what he has thought out, and if he doesn't know, he goes, "I don't know." He goes, "I don't know," or he goes, "I haven't thought about that." Right? So, and this pisses people off because they say you should do, and it's like blank, and on the page there's like the faded text that says "play the game."
Right.
So it's you should play the game.
Right.
And he goes, "Why? Why should I play the game?" He
Because
goes, "I'm not going to play your
comfortable.
game. I'm going to play my game." And this is how it's going to be.
They want certainty,
Yeah.
remember? And they can't be certain when it comes to him because he freely admits these things are all in flux constantly. If you hand him a situation that he did not think of and it changes whatever belief he holds about an item or a thing or a situation or general like principle, he will be like, "Oh, yeah, in that situation, that would be completely different because that's a different situation." And he will tell you, "I wouldn't know. I won't know until I'm there." It's great to say, if somebody broke into your house, you would shoot them and defend your home. Well, great, but when that doorknob jiggles, what are you doing?
Well, I know a certain group of people that are in the bathroom crying.
Cry your heart out, sweetheart, but your corpse is going to have like hella tear streaks.
Yeah.
Like FNAF crying child tear streaks.
God. So, he doesn't play the game.
Right.
And the thing that really I became to appreciate him is that he always attacks their ideas. He doesn't attack people's character.
Yes.
Now, they want to go low. He's like, "Bitch, I own this road. You see that? That's my toll booth over there."
He is the patron saint of degeneracy. You're not gonna...
I love that.
You're not gonna, like, out-degenerate Asmon.
Yeah.
The most you can do is go along
he's
for the
always
ride.
like Frieza level 1, right? Like Frieza Form 1, and he's like,
right.
"We can play games." And he's like, "Oh, I just destroyed your argument." And then it's like they want to go down the road, and he's like, "Frieza level 3, Jesus, Form 3." And he's like, "You fucked."
One of my favorite things, one of my absolute favorite things to tell people that do that is the minute that you have to attack me on a personal level and not my argument, I won.
Yeah. So, all right, we're going to go to the Asmon Paradox, but I thought of this, and I was like, oh my god, this is so true. Okay. The people who say that Asmon's a grifter...
Grifter, define that for me.
Grifter is someone that they're saying something to earn influence or money, right?
Clout chaser?
Yeah, basically, right? But but the clout's, I think, typically for, influence. Grifting, there's a monetary component to it.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
So they say he's a grifter. To the far right, like it's so funny because I'm like, the dude's a progressive.
They hate him. What?
Anyways, I
can't
know.
think of a single far right conservative that would be like, "I like this guy." They all be like, "Burn him."
Yeah, well, I think he's very smart in that he's progressive in some senses, but I see where he's conservative in others. And so he gets hit going both ways. But yeah, the people who say he's a grifter, they're the grifters. Anyways, it's very interesting. So the Asmon paradox. So you have people who preach the way that things should be. So this is all their ego. And they're like, oh, the world should be this, and this is the ideal. But on the flip side, they behave in an emotionally nonsensical way where their morality is just tied to convenience.
Right.
And their actions condemn them. These are the people who use technology and then they bitch using their technology, right?
Right.
When that technology is made by slaves. These are people who literally want to be moral and own slaves too.
Yeah.
It's okay because the slaves go live in another country
Right.
and they don't have to see them.
Right, their morals exist until the test is in front of them.
Their morals are worse, in my opinion, than people who would have slaves and own them and see them every day. Because you could have at least the guy who treated his slaves right, because there were reports of that they would treat the slaves right, and they actually were having problems. They're like, how can I be a moral person and Christian and own slaves? But they're worse than that because they're like, I don't want to see these slaves.
Right.
Keep them the fuck over there. I'm not.
It's easy to maintain your so-called morals when they're untested.
And then it's like these people, the weather, climate change people who are marring these human masterpieces because we're marring nature's masterpiece, right? And it's like, are you serious? This is thought through. This is emotionally charged. What are you doing? You just hurt your.
You mean with the paint that was created by those
right.
processes?
Well, tinfoil hat conspiracy, that's actually big oil doing that, something like that, or big paint. It may be big paint. But what gets me,
it'll make you smarter.
What gets me is that I feel like Asmon is super moral about this because he recognizes it, he acknowledges it, he understands that he can't stop it.
Right.
He can look at it and say, that thing is there.
Yeah.
And as I'm doing this, I recognize that I'm participating in that system.
Yeah.
So he's actually calling out responsibility for being a part of the system that creates it.
Right.
And so, but at the same time, too, he has this realistic understanding of humanity. It's like, people aren't going to do this. If he's talked about a button, if you had a button and you could earn $50, hit that button, it's going to kill someone on the other side of the world. Would you do it?
No.
You may not, I may not, but there are a whole lot of people that would be like, I'd be like, you can get $50 for hitting this button, and they're like, hit it. And I'm like, you just killed someone. Will you hold up? I'm like,
listen to the
and they're like, keep hitting it. And I'm like, they're like, money please. Money please. They're like making a dance out of it. Anyway, so, yeah. And so he's realistic about it. Okay,
they're
so.
hitting that button like you do the song Cups by Anna Kendrick, which, by the way, fantastic. Love her.
Okay. So last point, and then I got some receipts.
Let's go.
Okay. I love the way he goes into controversial hot button topics.
Okay.
Because he comes into them with logic. If you watch media and pundits, not journalists, but pundits.
Right.
These people always come in with fear-mongering emotions or whatever, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's to charge you up, and that's their job. That's what they exist for.
Because they know that your emotions dictate what you value.
But he brings in logic in it. And I think, honestly, I was thinking about it, that controversial topics, these are just topics that the general public has not processed emotionally to the point where we can get to them logically.
Right.
And it's just the immaturity of the public at large.
Yeah.
Because many of the accepted ideals that we have today were controversial. First Amendment rights, Second Amendment rights, having a democracy.
Right.
Right? All these things that regulations, unions, all these things were controversial.
Yeah.
They're not controversial anymore. And in fact, most of us go, these are logical. We should have these.
Right.
Okay. So here's how I think Asmon, it proved. These all prove that Asmon cares. And I actually think that he is a moral person. And I actually think he's compassionate. And I think that he's had compassion for me in a very indirect way, right? So, he got in trouble, quote, for the fat phobic thing, right? I was telling you about that. Where he said that people who are fat, you're basically killing yourself, right? Hey, do what you want. He's all for freedom. But at the end of the day, if you're fat, you should not be, lifting this up as a way of life. This is a bad thing. I'm a fat dude. I'm obese. I'm working on it. but it was actually because of what he said in that.
Right.
They're sitting there saying, "Oh, he's being fat phobic," right? And so someone's like, "Oh, you're fat phobic," and
That's
he's like,
not what phobia is, BT dubs.
"Yeah, I'm not scared of fat people. I don't.
I don't see a fat person and go, ah!
I'm scared of dying as a fat person." I mean, so the thing for Asmon is that he said, someone goes, "You're fat phobic," and he goes, "Really? You know what else is fat phobic? Your body." Boy, did that slap me across the face. And I was like, oh, my God. Because I already saw where he was going. He goes, not to the extreme that he took it. It was really good because he's like, think about nursing homes. Do you see fat 90-year-olds, 80-year-olds?
Generally, no.
No, you don't, because they all dead.
Right.
And then I start looking up the statistics that most people who are, like, I think it was obese class 3. I may be down to 2 now, I don't know. But like obese class 3, they're like, you have a 50% chance of making through your 60s. You have like a 10% chance of 70s or something like that. Like very low that you're going to make it. And I'm like, oh my God, that's half my life. Like this is like, could be halfway over. And I'm like, okay, no.
No.
And so people are going, oh, and they say this shit to them all the time. Oh, you're not compassionate. Because they think that being compassionate means like, oh, you poor baby. Oh, let's make it better. And instead, it's like, no, bitch, this is what you need to hear. Here's the truth. Get this shit together and get it fixed.
This is the
and I'll tell you how to
fix
fix
your
it.
ass.
Yeah, it's a long-term compassion. It's a compassion that looks on down the road and says, hey, here's the thing that you really need to get fixed, and here's why.
Right.
Right? Like, people say it's not compassion. I'm like, you don't know what compassion is. You need to shut the fuck up.
He's not the compassion of, you should love yourself exactly as you are and never change. Which, by the way, is not compassion.
Yeah,
that is a circle jerk.
Acceptance, yeah, it's so weird.
Instead, he's the compassion of, I don't want to see you fucking die. So stop doing the shit that's going to make you fucking die.
Right. And so his being compassionate and telling the truth of that situation opened my eyes and made me realize, I mean, it took me a couple months and it really bothered me and it set with it.
Right.
And now, as of today, I'm a little over 20 pounds down off my weight.
Woo.
Yeah. Right. It's been a journey. It's been, it's working out. But I got to a place where I wasn't eating as much. And so I maintained. But it was like, okay, it's time to not eat as much and be active and get that done. Right.
Well, and you started cutting out like a bunch of things that weren't good for you.
Yeah. Well, every now and then. Right. Like,
well, deprivation doesn't do shit because that's how relapses happen. Yeah. But it's more of, I see a lot more balance.
So I'm just going to run through this list.
Go for it.
Okay. Right. He's pro-regulation. He doesn't believe that corporations should just have free run. Anyone who's anti-regulation, I think, is just an idiot. I don't understand how you think that we should trust corporations to do the right thing. Everything that you have around you right now is run by regulations. I don't get it. It makes no sense to me. He does not believe that immigrants should be a slave class for low wages so that we can run our economy. Even though we have people on the left saying this. That's insane. But people on the left are saying this. This is insanity to me. He has supported LGBTQ rights and them being able to adopt children since back, I think, like 08, 09, when he was actually working for a group, like a charity, doing actual hands-on work. Man. Like, he's actually done activist work, not slacktivism like Twitter.
Yeah.
These people are, I posted. I've made the world such a better place. My mental illnesses are down by 3. They'll be up by 6 in the afternoon. So anyways, and one of the things too, I think also makes him deeply moral is that he claims that morality doesn't come from religion. And I think that actually takes understanding and being nuanced and being a moral person to recognize that you should not make that as a moral universal, or that's the wellspring from which morality flows.
Right.
He has been complex in his understanding of pro-Palestine yet anti-Palestinian protesters. These people who want to go make the lives harder of average citizens who are in a system that's abusing them, and in a system where we're all suffering. The economy's in shambles.
Right.
Things suck. And you're going to go, like, why did you not go block Wall Street? Like, get fucked. Like, leave average people alone. And then they want to make it, oh, well, this is what we're supposed to do, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you're not a moral person. Shut up. You're a LARPer.
You're on the bandwagon.
God, you're LARPing.
Oh, God.
He's pro-consumer rights.
Right.
He bans harassment and hate speech in his chat.
Yeah.
He even knows all the dog whistles. He knows more dog whistles than most of Twitch users.
Right.
Like, and he has them all blocked. He does not play the game. He is anti-gambling. He is anti-censorship. Of course, we talked about personal censorship, which is fine. Like, when he took the political compass test, he spent time on every freaking answer to go, here's why I think this is. This is a person who is deeply moral.
Right.
That's it. I think Asmon is more moral than most people.
Well, it's because he took that responsibility unto himself and is actually being responsible with it. Agree or disagree with the things he says and the beliefs he holds.
Disagree with his lifestyle.
Feel whatever you feel, think whatever you think. But at the end of the day, the biggest point of morality is that it bears responsibility.
Yeah. And if you can't be responsible, then you can't be moral.
Right.
Because I think responsibility is the first prerequisite.
And labor bears fruit.
Yeah.
And if you are claiming that you're putting in all this labor in morality, but you look like every freaking buddy else who claims that they're, moral and all that, well, 99% of the time, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's not Jesus. So
anyways, that's all we got. There you go. I have laid out how people are typically moral. So if you ever see this, dude, you are a moral person. The problem is most other people aren't moral. These are a bunch of cave people doing cave people things. They're just making arguments for honor. They don't give a damn about right and wrong.
Just because you're not moral in the way that the rest of the world tells you morality should work does not make you a not moral person.
We had more people that were intellectual like Asmon, the world would be a much better place. That's my opinion.
Well, and that doesn't mean you have to agree with everything that he says either. It just means put in the thought to
I didn't agree that he said he wasn't moral and didn't have a moral compass.
Right,
it's
that's why we're here.
No. So anyways, that's it. There you go. I guess you're going to start doing videos, right? For yourself?
Yes.
Your own content?
Yeah.
And I'll keep doing my content.
That's going to be a fun time.
We're going to add some other stuff, right? So I'll do world building, but I want to also talk about random stuff like this video. And you'll have your stuff, and it's going to be a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have fun.
It's going to be a good time.
Okay, do you have an outro? Are you good?
Take your meds if you have them. If you don't have them, that's cool too.
Take someone else's meds.
Don't. Jesus, no. Mental illness is not a badge of honor. It is something to overcome, and you're on your way. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
That's us, not you.
Don't be that guy. Nobody ever says, oh, that guy, and means anybody good. Don't be that guy.
Yeah, like Freya. She's that girl right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a good night.
All right. Peace.